this one here says the Gospels were written sometime later after Jesus' death. How could the authors of the four Gospels remember exactly what happened in Jesus' life, activity, and his words, and write them down well?
Yeah, right on. Great, and that's a great question. And that's sort of, again, what I was speaking to in the sense of understanding the oral tradition and oral form, and then what written history is, even if they're written later after Jesus' death. We are assuming sort of as moderns that Jesus just said this thing once, and that we just had to remember what he had said once, and then we have to write it down, and Jesus, that's 50 years later, how could I have possibly remembered? That's not what's going on here. Although, I will just preface this by saying, we also have to understand that the memory of first century Jews and Gentiles is far better than our own. And this is actually an important point. I'll just tell you, modern technology has totally changed the way we shape our memories. Because you have Google and it acts as a different brain, you don't have memory in the same way, because you believe that if I have the information sort of stored somewhere, it's as if I already know it, but really you're just looking it up. Our memories don't function exactly the same way, and memory of oral tradition is passed down through narrative. It's passed down through story. We remember stories much better than we remember just facts and pieces of information. This was something Socrates himself, as a philosopher, had warned against. He was the reason why Socrates actually didn't write anything down. Plato wrote down what Socrates said. Socrates was worried about people writing things down, because he was worried that once you start writing things down, you won't remember them. You'll have to. You can't rely on your memory anymore. You can just go to the text. And so people in the first century actually have astounding memories. There's even an ancient story, and this is true. This is an actual recorded story we have of a Greek. Of a Grecian man going to the theater in Greece and hearing a play. And at the end of the play, he stands up and he says, "These playwriters plagiarized me. This is my play." And they said, "Well, prove." He starts reciting the play from beginning to end. And he gets through the entire first scene. And then they say, "Well, this is false. You didn't write this." And he was actually just showing off. He was showing off that he could remember the entire play, start to finish, just by hearing it once. That's how good people's memory was, potentially, at least in the first century. So first of all, memory, there's a whole study of just how good memory was and how that works. That's important. But it's not the whole thing. It really has more to do with understanding what it means to be a disciple and following in the Christian tradition. Again, the Bible is giving you a narrative in which something like the Sermon on the Mount makes it seem as though Jesus just got up on a hill one day and started saying these things. The truth is that everything that Jesus would have said there would have been repeated time and time again. He would have said this to his disciples multiple times. And so where we get totally concerned with the verbatim, oh, did he say it this way? Was it precisely these words? The gospel writers are far more concerned with, is it authentic to the person of Christ? Yes, he said these things, but there's also, as a student of Christ, as an apostle, there's a certain freedom of saying, but I know the tradition. I know Jesus personally. I'm not speaking for him, but I can speak truthfully to what he had said. And so to get really, over anxious about how do we know they recorded it verbatim, word for word, it's just kind of it's a skeptical approach that we don't need to worry about. The point is that we have these early manuscripts from eyewitness accounts recounting the same story that line up theologically with what's being said, right? That, again, this whole idea that contradictions in scripture somehow are a problem, it's like, if the early church thought there were actual contradictions, why would they compile them together? Doesn't make any sense. So again, it's sort of understanding that the oral tradition, when it gets put down in written form, is far more concerned with relaying truthfully what Jesus had said and did, but they are free as well to have this sort of interpretive lens of saying, not only was this the event that happened, but had you even been there witnessing that visible event, you might have missed what was really going on. You might have missed it, right? Let me give one really quick example. You have something like John 9. John 9, Jesus heals a blind man. And it says that he spits into the dirt and rubs it on his eyes. And you go, well, why would the author include that detail? Why, like, where does that detail come from? And why doesn't it show up in the other gospels? When Jesus heals other blind people, he doesn't spit in the mud and rub his eyes with it. So why is John's gospel concerned with telling us that specific detail? And it actually has to do with, he's trying to connect Christ's identity in that action. He's saying, because go back to Genesis 2, how does God create human beings? Right? The dust of the earth. So what he's saying is Jesus is taking the dust of the earth and recreating man and giving him vision. So John is adding a historical detail that I'm sure might have happened, but the point is he's purposely putting it in where other gospel writers might not have written about rubbing dirt in the eyes. John is concerned to say it because he's saying it's not just about what happened, it's about the significance of what that historical event says about the identity of Christ. And it says that he's truly the Son of God, right? He's the second person of the Trinity. That's what it's concerned with conveying. So that's just a way in which the history of the Bible is interpretive. It's concerned with conveying greater meaning than just pure fact. Yeah.
Thank you very much.